Okay, so here's the deal. This was not very long ago I did a video here on the channel of my top 10 video games of all time. And let me tell you guys, that was a tough top 10 to put together. Because, and I think that a lot of you will relate to that, you know, we are gamers, and especially us that really enjoy retro video games. I mean, we do play a little bit of everything. There's so much variety going on, you know, across multiple genres and systems. But I think that on that video, which I will leave the link down below for you guys to check it out, I think that I did a pretty good job in that sense of, you know, picking up 10 games that, you know, define me as a gamer. These were games from franchises that I really enjoy. These were games that were part of system libraries also that I really enjoy. And there was a lot of nostalgia involved in those picks. But since I uploaded that video, I kind of left myself with this sensation of, well, I kind of betrayed a couple of these games, you know, in my collection. And I left out a couple of games, you know, from franchises and also from my childhood that, you know, just didn't cut into my original top 10. But again, and even though I'm having different favorites all the time, I think that I did a pretty good job in picking up 10 games that are really my top 10 video games of all time. Nevertheless, I think that I should make this video. And today I'm bringing you guys 10 more games. And let's call this my top 10 video games of all time, you know, honorable mentions, if you will. And that's exactly what I have for you guys today. 10 honorable mentions of my top 10 video games of all time. So let's take a closer look right after this. Okay, these are not in any specific order, but let's start with the number 1. And I don't know if you guys noticing, but there's a game missing there next to Tombi 2. That is, of course, Tombi 1. I absolutely love this game. It's one of my favorite PS1 games of all time. And you probably know this if you follow my channel. I've mentioned this game a couple of times here on the show. And if you've been around since the very beginning of my YouTube show, this was actually my very first video. I did a review of Tombi, the original one. And what is left for me to say about Tombi? This game is very bizarre, very strange, but also very unique. And it is also one of those games where I don't consider it a hidden gem anymore, because I think that by now, everybody that collects for the PS1 knows about Tombi. Because let's face it, this is a tough game to get. It is a rare game on the system, and it is also very expensive to get these days. But for us that played this game back in the day, back in the late 90s, this game became a cult classic. And I do understand that it is not worth it for a lot of people, but, you know, the people that like Tombi really like Tombi. And hey, I'm one of those people, so Tombi 1, my first pick. Now, number 2, let's talk about Nintendo for a bit. And on my previous top 10 video games of all time, I didn't mention any Super Mario game. And even though I'm a huge fan of Mario, I think that the reason for that was because I didn't grow up with a Nintendo home console at home. My very first contact with Nintendo was thanks to the Game Boy. And for me, the Game Boy, especially the Game Boy Color back in the day, was all about Pokemon. But then the Nintendo 64 game, and along with the Nintendo 64 at launch, it came this little game called Super Mario 64. Very different from the 2D Marios. It was a brand new change, but a very good one in my opinion. Arguably one of the best 3D platformer games of all time. For some people, the best Super Mario game of all time. I will not dare to say that. I'm not saying that it is the best Super Mario game of all time. I'm just saying that it is my personal favorite. I love the graphics, I love the brand new mechanics. I think that Mario looks great in 3D. And I think that still to this day, this game aged very well. Not only on the graphics, but, you know, the mechanics, the whole concept of the game. And the latest release on the main series, Super Mario Odyssey, on the Nintendo Switch, I think that Super Mario Odyssey grabbed a lot of elements from Mario 64. And yeah, still to this day, it is my favorite Mario game of all time. One of my favorite games on the Nintendo 64. And yeah, that's why I had to include this on my honorable mentions. So Super Mario 64, my second pick. Now, speaking about Nintendo, well, as a huge JRPG fan, the Super Nintendo is a 16-bit paradise for RPGs. I don't have it on the Super Nintendo, but I do have the original version on the Super Famicom, and I'm talking about, of course, Chrono Trigger. And I will dare to say this, hands down, best 16-bit RPG of all time. A lot of people consider this game a masterpiece, and with a very good reason, because it is indeed a masterpiece. And Usually, I don't grade games here on my channel, but this is a 10 out of 10 game. The graphics are purely and simple, some of the best good-looking 2D graphics of all time. The soundtrack is one of my personal favorites when it comes to 16-bit JRPGs. I love the fighting mechanics, I love the story, I love the characters, I love the boss battles, I love the world, I love the universe, I love the plot. And what is left for me to say that it wasn't said already about Chrono Trigger? Hands down, one of the best video games of all time. And let me tell you, if you are curious about 16-bit RPGs, please give this one a try. Chrono Trigger is, without a doubt, one of those games in which you should really play at least one time. So Chrono Trigger, my third pick. Now let's put consoles aside, and the next one is actually a PC game. Not a PC exclusive, but I mean, if you're going to play this game, you really should play it on the PC, and I'm talking about, of course, The Sims. I know, it is not for everybody. A lot of people don't understand Sims, but you know, the ones who get it really love it. And what can I say? I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of The Sims pretty much since it came out. And back in the day when we first got a PC at home, I remember playing the original Sims, and my father hated it. He thought that I was playing a dull game, if you will, and in a sense, I kinda get it, but there's nothing wrong with that. But the true reason why I love The Sims is the fact that we can build these amazing houses, you know, these amazing worlds. And that's really what grabs me on the Sims franchise, is the ability to build everything that we want in a house. And yeah, I've been following the franchise since then. I didn't pick all of the expansions, and the reason why I picked The Sims 4 is because each brand new Sims, in my opinion, is better than the previous one. So there you go, my number 4, The Sims 4. Okay, the next one. Speaking about story, this game for me, it's all about the story. And I'm talking about Life is Strange. When I first got the PS4, I believed that the original Life is Strange was one of the very first collectors or limited editions that I ever got, which is right here. And I really fell in love with the game. I think that this is one of the best indie games of all time, hands down. Even though I still haven't played it, Life is Strange 2, the reason for that was because, you know, I was planning to get the collector's edition when it came out, but I missed on that, and now that collector's edition is just way too much expensive for me. And the reason why I picked Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is a prequel to the original game, it's because, you know, this is one story, you know, the first two games, Life is Strange and Before the Storm. But yeah, the reason why I prefer Before the Storm is just because I prefer this part of the story. Even though on the big picture, this is technically just one game, if you will. But yeah, Life is Strange is amazing. If you never played this game, this is one of those games where you kind of pick your choices and you have different outcomes, so there's a lot of replayability on this one. And it's funny because I played this game alone, but then I watched my girlfriend play it, and she made different decisions. So yeah, I got the chance to see another side of the story, or another approach, if you will. And again, for me, Life is Strange is really all about the story. It's all about the characters. And here on Before the Storm, we take a closer look at Chloe, which is my favorite character on the series. Yeah, it's kind of her story, her background. And yeah, I absolutely love Life is Strange. So Life is Strange Before the Storm, my 5th pick. Okay, the next one. And let's go back to the 16-bit era. And this is a Mega Drive game. And the Mega Drive, as you guys know, was my very first contact with video games. And still to this day, it is my favorite 16-bit system. And even though this game was not an exclusive, when I think about this franchise, I think about the 2D games. And when I think about this specific game, and I'm talking about Mortal Kombat 3, I think about the Mega Drive version, because it's the one that I played back in the day. I love Mortal Kombat, and even though Tekken is my favorite fighting franchise of all time, when it comes to 2D fighting games, Mortal Kombat is the thing for me to play. Mortal Kombat 3 because, for me, this is the peak of the franchise. I love the brand new characters, I love the brand new fatalities, and the brand new gimmicks. This is an honorable mention, and Mortal Kombat 3 for me, yeah, I would dare to say that for me is the best 2D Mortal Kombat game of all time. Kinda controversial, I know, because a lot of people prefer Mortal Kombat 2, especially on the Super Nintendo. A lot of people prefer the original Mortal Kombat, and yeah, of course that the arcade versions are superior, but you know, for me it's also about nostalgia. And again, Mortal Kombat for me, it's on the Mega Drive. That's where my memories are with this franchise. And my memories come from the fact that, well, I didn't own a Mega Drive back in the day, but pretty much all my friends had one. Especially thanks to their older brothers, and I used to spend afternoons at their places, you know, playing Mortal Kombat, you know, in 2 players, home tournaments, you guys remember that. Yeah, those were indeed the good old days, and one of my friends that used to live close to me, when he went on summer vacation with his family, he used to lend me his Mega Drive, and he also got Mortal Kombat 3. So I remember playing this game, you know, alone, at my place, for the entire summer. And I'll admit that I never got really good at the game, but again, it's all about nostalgia for this pick. So number 6, Mortal Kombat 3. Okay, the next one. And there's a good chance that a lot of you guys don't know that this game exists on the PS2. And I'm talking about Age of Empires 2. I'm showing the PS2 version just to contextualize everything, even though of course my favorite version is the original one on PC. Although I don't own the original though, but I used to have a pirate copy, and later on this version came out on the PS2, and the thing is that I think that this version was exclusive here for Europe, and no, it is not as good as the PC version. Of course, you have a couple of limitations. I mean, we're talking about PS2, it is not a computer, and I also have the 4K remasters that I got on Steam. And what can I say? What can I say about Age of Empires 2? And yes, I'm a big fan of RTS games, the Settlers, Warcraft, Starcraft, but Age of Empires for me, especially this one, the second one, the Age of Kings, hands down, I will dare to say it, best RTS game of all time. I love the campaigns on Age of Empires 2. When it comes to RTS, I'm a big campaign guy, and this game has some of the best campaigns that I ever played on an RTS game. I'm also a big fan of history, especially the Middle Ages, and this game is not a fantasy game. It is actually based on real characters and real events. I also love the soundtrack. It is one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I actually did a top 10 video game soundtracks of all time, and I included Age of Empires on that top 10, and I can leave the link of that video down below if you guys want to check it out. And even though the 4K remasters are totally worth it and they look beautiful, for me, the original one on PC is still the right way to play Age of Empires 2. But hey, I thought that this was a very good opportunity to show my copy on the PS2, so Age of Empires 2, number 7. Speaking about history, I'm a huge fan of the Roman Empire age. And back in the day, a little movie called Gladiator came out. And I used to love that movie, and I still do. As a kid, I had this huge fascination about gladiators, and I still do. My favorite TV show, Spartacus, hands down. And a couple of years ago, I had the privilege to go to Italy, and I visited the Colosseum, and let me tell you guys, that was an amazing experience for me. But back in the day, in the early 2000s, we didn't have a lot of gladiator-themed video games. We had a couple of ones, but not very good, until this game came out. And I'm talking about Shadow of Rome. If you guys own a PS2, if you guys like gladiators, if you like the Roman Empire age, please, you must play Shadow of Rome. This is an action-adventure game. It also has a couple of stealth elements to it, a lot of investigation, if you will. You play with 2 different characters in one single story, Agrippa and Octavianus. Octavianus is the stealth guy that needs to grab clues to unveil the big mystery around this game, and Agrippa is the fighting guy, and that's where the fun is. He's a gladiator. We have these amazing and epic gladiatorial battles. I mean, it's just awesome. And yes, it is true that this game aged, but back in the day, this game looked amazing. This was top notch. Even though this game plays a little bit on the slow side sometimes, but the controls are good, even for today's standards. And the graphics, I mean, for me, some of the best graphics back in the day, especially on the PS2. And a fun fact is that this game is actually based on a book. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I don't know if this was a PS2 exclusive. I think it was, but I'm not entirely sure about that. But for me, still to this day, this game is a masterpiece. So, Shadow of Rome, my number 3. Okay, this next one, let me tell you, this is going to be controversial. Favorite video game company of all time? Square Enix. Favorite JRPG franchise of all time? Final Fantasy. Favorite Final Fantasy game of all time, which was mentioned on my top 10 video games of all time? Final Fantasy VIII. I just had to pick another Final Fantasy game. And you guys are probably wondering, well, he's going to pick Final Fantasy VII, but no, I'm not. And believe me guys, this was a tough decision. But yeah, I have to go with Final Fantasy X. Even though Final Fantasy VII was my very first contact with the series, and I love Final Fantasy VII. And it is true that Final Fantasy X is not for everybody, I do understand that, and why. The game, well, it's kinda clunky sometimes. The voice acting was not very good, and I mean, this was the first Final Fantasy game with voice acting. And I'll agree with one thing. Final Fantasy X has the worst protagonist in any Final Fantasy game. I mean, Tidus, come on. But the reason why I love this game so much, it's because of Spira, the world of Final Fantasy X. I love Spira, I love the characters, I love the ambience, I love the small village, I love this conflict war, you know, this religious war, which is the center story of Final Fantasy X. I love the summonings, which are called Eons on Final Fantasy X. And yeah, for me, what really got me into this game again was Spira, was the world. I love the graphics. I still think that this game aged very, very well, even though we also have the remasters. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Tidus, the protagonist, I do enjoy the other characters of the game. Going on this pilgrimage with Yuna and the other guys. I mean, what an adventure. Blitzball, hands down, I love Blitzball. But at the same time, I think that that's one of the beauties about this franchise, is that each Final Fantasy game is a unique game. And it's okay to have different favorites. We all love the original Final Fantasy of the NES. We all love Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VI is also an amazing game. So yeah, Final Fantasy VIII, still to this day, my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. But next to it is Final Fantasy X. Yeah, but just one quick side note here. This piece of shit right here, Final Fantasy X-2. Yeah, this is a piece of shit. This game never happened. I don't own it on my collection. This is a mirage. Just stay away from it. Down to the last one, and let me tell you guys, this game didn't cut to the chase on the original top 10, but just barely. And let's just say that this is my 11th favorite video game of all time, if you will. I'm a huge Rockstar fan, and you guys know where this is going. We're talking about GTA here. I'm a huge fan of GTA. I can't wait for the upcoming GTA 6, whenever that game is going to happen. I love GTA 5. I enjoyed GTA 4 on the PS3 back in the day. But, you know, the 3D universe, or the 3D era of GTA is my way to go. And, of course, that I had to pick a GTA game from the 3D era. And this is indeed my favorite GTA game of all time. And I'm talking about GTA San Andreas. I do understand why a lot of fans love Vice City. I do understand why Vice City is considered to be the best GTA game ever made. But for me, San Andreas it's San Andreas. I love the brand new RPG elements. I think that in the end, for me, it was not just the story and not just the character, even though the story is awesome and CJ, hands down for me, the best main character in GTA. But as a huge fan of RPGs, I just love the RPG mechanics that they brought into this one. And I think that most of GTA fans will agree with me on this one. Well, GTA, of course that the story is important, but in the end it's all about the gameplay and the world, the open world environment. And for me, the world that Rockstar created for us on San Andreas is just amazing. Los Santos, San Fierro, Las Venturas, I mean, 3 cities in one single game, and it is massive. Still to this day, this game is huge. I also love the side activities that we can do on this one. I mean, there's so much going on with this single game. And for me, yeah, I think that this is one of the most impressive video games ever made. I remember that back in the day when I first played this game, it was at a friend's house. I remember looking at it and say, well, this is not going to get any better. This is where we peak when it comes to video games. But now 2020, what, 15 years later more or less, we have GTA 5 also in Los Santos, and yeah, things have changed a lot. And again, even though I think that the series is getting better and better, I mean, just look at GTA 5 and the success of that game. I mean, we got that game on the PS3, we got that game on the PS4, we are going to get it on the PS5. But yeah, for me, San Andreas still is my favorite GTA game of all time. And just for fun, guys, let me know down below what is your favorite GTA game. And this concludes the video, guys. These were my 10 honorable mentions of my top 10 video games of all time. And please, guys, let me know about yours. Let me know down below what is your top 10 video games of all time. And also let me know what did you guys think about these honorable mentions. Were you expecting this list? Is there any game in here that will cut to your top 10 video game of all time? Yeah, let me know down below. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Yeah, it was a long one, but I had to do it. And yeah, it is done. And as always, thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to put a like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel and take care of yourselves, take care of the gaming community, and game a lot.